Hey guys, it's Michael here. In today's video, I want to talk about the 14 reasons why you're not losing weight. According to the CDC, over 72% of Americans are either overweight or obese. But a lot of people are trying to lose weight, but unfortunately fail despite doing everything right. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the reasons that I've seen why people are not losing weight. And I'm going to talk specifically about why you might not be losing weight in certain areas. You might have those problem areas, in your ankles, thighs, or midsection where you're losing weight everywhere and fat everywhere, but those areas remain behind, and I'm going to tell you why that is and what you can potentially do about that. I'm also going to link a lot of resources down in the description that go into significantly more details into scientific evidence and rationale behind all of the things that I'm going to mention today. Before we continue, I'd like to thank Element for sponsoring this video. Element is by far my favorite electrolyte supplement. Not only is it incredibly delicious, but it contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of 1000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium without any of the junk that my body doesn't need, including fillers, flow agents, artificial colors, and sweeteners, etc. I use Element strategically on days where I sweat a lot. For example, when I go workout, when I'm in the sauna, or when I build a chicken coop in the backyard. On those days, I may lose up to 7 grams of sodium, and if I don't replenish that, my physical and mental performance go down the drain, and I may experience common symptoms of electrolyte deficiency, including muscle cramps, headaches, sleeplessness, etc. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serving packets, free with any order. It's a great way to try all 8 flavors or share Element with a salty friend. Get yours at drinkelement.com/michaelkummer. This deal is only available through my link, so you have to go to drinklement.com/michaelkummer. Now back to the video. Now the reason number 1 why you might not be losing weight is insulin resistance. Now, when you consume carbohydrates, your pancreas releases insulin to remove the resulting glucose from those carbohydrates and bring them into cells so your cells can use the glucose for energy. If your cells are not sensitive enough to the signal of insulin, meaning if they're insulin resistant, then that glucose doesn't go anywhere. And so the only thing your body can do at this point is to convert that glucose into fat and store it in your fat tissue so you can use it for later when you might need that energy. So insulin resistance is the major factor of why you might not be losing weight. And the reasons why you might be insulin resistant is because you've been consuming significantly more carbohydrates than, especially processed carbohydrates, than what your body needed for energy. So at some point your cells say, I'm done, I don't need any more glucose, bring it somewhere else. And that somewhere else is unfortunately your adipose tissue, your fat tissue. And so if you're insulin resistant, you're more likely to be in fat storing mode all the time instead of fat burning mode. To find out what you can do to improve your insulin sensitivity and to turn around your insulin resistance, again, check out my blog post for more information about that. Number 2 is metabolic inflexibility. Now, if your metabolism is working optimally, it can switch back and forth very easily between burning glucose from dietary carbohydrates and fat for energy. But if you're metabolically inflexible, then your body can never go into that fat burning mode, meaning to use fat for energy. It keeps burning glucose for energy, and if there is no glucose available, it doesn't really do anything very good. You're just feeling crappy and hungry and fatigued, and nothing is happening. So metabolic inflexibility is another major issue because it prevents your body from efficiently burning fat for energy. And if you don't consume fat, if there is no dietary fat available, if you're metabolically flexible, your body can burn its own fat. That's a metabolic state called ketosis, and it's the basic principle of a ketogenic diet. And that's actually one of the best ways to improve your metabolic flexibility is to go on a ketogenic diet. Number 3 are abnormal sex hormone levels, and I'm talking about specifically about testosterone and estrogen. Those 2 hormones are significant players in fat metabolism. So if your levels are either too high or too low, then you might be accumulating fat and you might prevent your body from burning fat. Studies have shown very clearly that most obese men also happen to have low testosterone levels, and if those patients increase their testosterone levels either by making the appropriate lifestyle choices, like improving sleep, exercising more, removing xenoestrogens from the environment. We're going to talk about that here in a bit. Then their fat burning suddenly increases and they lose weight. Making sure that their sex hormone levels are where they should be is incredibly important to support your weight loss efforts. Now, one word about xenoestrogens. There are a lot of chemicals in our environment that mimic the sex hormone estrogen and that can bind to the estrogen receptors in our body. And every cell in our body has an estrogen receptor. So there is a lot of ways to bind and dock onto. And the problem is that xenoestrogens, those estrogen mimicking chemicals, are in tap water, in personal care products, in plastic food storage containers, in perfumes, in scents, and in many other things. So you might be exposed to a ton of xenoestrogens every single day just by drinking unfiltered tap water, by using deodorant, by using lotions, etc., by eating out of plastic food storage containers and drinking out of plastic bottles. And that significantly derails your normal sex hormone levels, thus preventing you from losing weight or making you gain weight. And I have a lot of resources, I'm going to link them down below, on what xenoestrogens are, how to prevent them, and a separate video of products that we use that are free of those xenoestrogens. Number 4, poor sleep habits. If you don't sleep well, if you don't have a regular sleep routine, you're negatively impacting your weight loss efforts for several reasons. Number 1 is some of the sex hormones I've discussed, especially testosterone, gets released during certain stages of sleep, particularly during REM sleep, that rapid eye movement sleep that happens predominantly in the second half of your night. So if you cut your sleep short because you have to go to work or you want to go to the gym before going to the work, you negatively impact your testosterone levels, and that, as we've learned, has a negative impact on your weight loss efforts and your health overall. The second reason is if you're sleep deprived and low in energy, you're significantly more likely to make bad food choices, to kind of try to compensate for the lack of energy by eating energy dense foods that are typically highly processed and not good for your health. And that's another way of how poor sleep can derail your weight loss efforts. Number 5 is chronic stress. From an evolutionary perspective, stress was an important mechanism to save our lives. Stress back in the days usually meant a saber-toothed tiger was attacking, or we couldn't find any food, so we were starving. That was a stressor. Or we were, trying to hunt and physically exert ourselves in the search for food. So those were the stressors that were incredibly important to keep us alive. And so in those situations when our bodies were under stress, we tried to eat as much as possible because A, we needed the energy either to fight or to run, or if the stress was induced by not having any food, if we suddenly found food, we wanted to eat that as quickly as possible and as much as possible so we can sustain the next time when there is no food. And so it's an important mechanism from an evolutionary perspective. But today's stressors, financial stress or stress at work or whatever, they are usually not immediately life-threatening, but they still cause us to eat, to get energy into our body, and that causes us to overeat, especially overeat the wrong types of food. And that's obviously not good if you're trying to lose weight. So try to manage your stress as best as you can. Again, check out the resource in the description to learn more about that. Number 6, a chronic caloric deficit. So dieting for most people means eating less and exercising more. Basically shifting the balance of how many calories we burn versus what we consume. And while the energy balance is certainly a factor in weight gain and weight loss, a chronic caloric deficit can be detrimental to your weight loss efforts for several reasons. Number 1, at some point your body recognizes that, okay, there is not enough food coming in, so we need to slow down the metabolism to conserve energy. When your metabolism slows down, you're burning fewer calories. That's detrimental to your weight loss efforts because you want to burn more, right? The second thing is that our brains are hardwired to make you eat instead of starving. So what that basically means is that hunger always wins. You cannot remain hungry for extended periods. At some points, those chemicals released by your brain are powerful enough to make you eat. And when you then do, let's say you have a caloric deficit for a week, and then you're sick of it, you can't handle it anymore. Guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna dig in and eat as if there was no tomorrow. And unfortunately, very often that means eating the wrong types of food. And that's again detrimental to your weight loss effort. So maintaining a caloric deficit in the long run, not a good idea. It doesn't work, and it typically leads to actually weight gain, because you then eat more of the wrong foods that make you store fat instead of burning it. Number 7, consuming liquid calories. Have you ever looked at how much sugar in particular, but also calories, a bottle of Gatorade has, or the Frappuccino from Starbucks? It's ridiculous. You know, that large Frappuccino, whatever it's called right now from Starbucks, 65 grams of sugar. Same with Gatorade, a ton of sugar that's completely detrimental to any weight loss efforts. Generally speaking, stay away from liquid calories, because you can consume them very quickly. They pass through your digestive system relatively quickly and are readily available as energy, but very often you consume much more energy than what you need. And the wrong types of energy, because consuming 65 grams of sugar is not bueno, regardless of if you're trying to lose weight or not. And so stay away from liquid calories, chew real food that takes slower to digest, and you're gonna be on a better way towards weight loss. Number 8 is eating out a lot. Now, many people say, well, that's a no-brainer. We all know that restaurant food isn't great. But to be quite honest, I thought that if I go to a decent restaurant where I would expect decent quality food, that doesn't necessarily derail my weight loss efforts. But the problem is that most restaurants, really 99 out of 100, cook in fats and in oils that are detrimental to your weight loss. And I'm talking about vegetable and seed oils that are high in polyunsaturated fatty acids, and in particular omega-6s like linoleic acid. Those are fattening oils, and they cause inflammation, and they are fattening. So they cause your fat cells to grow bigger actually, and that's something you absolutely do not want, because that's unhealthy and it causes you again to gain weight. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is most sauces and salad dressings are full of loaded sugars, and very often also full of seed oils. So you get the combination of both things that you do not want to have. And so eating out is generally not a good idea. You cannot get, in most cases, healthy foods, even if it's expensive, in restaurants. Now, if you have to go, if you want to go, what I would highly recommend is stay away from fried foods. And if it's something that's pan-fried, maybe eggs or whatever it might be, ask the waiter if the cook or the kitchen can use butter instead of canola oil or any of the seeds oils that they would typically use. That's significantly better, and chances are you can get a half decent meal that's only half as detrimental to your weight loss efforts than if you just eat whatever it's on the menu. But I recommend staying away from restaurant food while you're trying to lose weight. Number 9, artificial junk light. Light has an incredibly powerful impact on our circadian rhythm, but also on our health overall. If you are only exposed to artificial junk light during the day, and if you're not exposed to sunlight, then chances are your sleep is going to be negatively impacted, which will negatively impact your weight loss efforts, and you're going to move less during the day. So my recommendation is to get sunlight first thing in the morning for a couple of minutes when the sun rises. Stare directly into the sun as long as it doesn't hurt in your eyes, and without a glass or a window or anything in between, just get that initial sunlight, because that causes your cortisol levels to rise, which is good in the morning, and so you're more energetic during the day. If your cortisol levels are not high in the morning, you're more likely to be tired and fatigued during the day with less energy. That means you move less and you burn fewer calories. So sunlight in the morning and during the day, incredibly important for hormone production, for circadian rhythm, and for sleep in the evening. And then in the evening, stay away from artificial junk light, in particular blue light from LEDs, from your phone screen, from your computer, etc. Wear blue light blocking glasses if need be. I have a separate video on that and a blog post I'm going to link down below, to allow your body to produce enough melatonin in the evening so you can fall asleep quickly, get enough deep sleep and REM sleep in the second half of the night. Incredibly important for your weight loss efforts. Number 10 are thyroid issues. The thyroid gland and the hormones it releases have a dramatic impact on how our bodies convert food into energy and how that energy is used. If you have low thyroid levels, then you are likely more fatigued, less energetic, and you move overall not the way you should, and your body is not using the energy that you supply via food in the best way possible. And there are several reasons for why your thyroid levels might be low and your thyroid gland might not be working optimally. It could be, stress, could be lack of exercise, could be poor diet, could be poor sleep. There are a lot of factors that go into this. But the bottom line is that if your thyroid levels are low, so have them checked out if necessary, then that could be one of the factors of why you're not losing weight, at least not as quickly as you would like. Number 11, you're doing mostly cardio instead of high intensity interval training and resistance or strength training. Cardio, in my opinion, is a relatively poor choice for losing weight, and certain types of cardio like jogging, be it on a treadmill or outside, is not very good for your joint health, especially if you have some extra pounds that you're carrying. But just think about it. If you go for a 30-minute run, you might burn 250, maybe 300 calories. If you don't, drink a bottle of Gatorade and have a protein bar, you've basically undone all the calorie burn. And it's, who likes, especially if you're not in physical great shape, it's probably a pain in the butt, to go on a treadmill for 30 minutes and just run, or go outside and run. Likely you're not going to do that for a very long time. And it's also not very efficient, in my opinion. The much better way to lose weight quickly and improve your insulin sensitivity in the process. Remember, one of the important factors of losing weight is to be insulin sensitive. And you can do that with high intensity interval training. It takes significantly less time and is more effective, and anyone can do that. And it doesn't have to be CrossFit necessarily. That's what I do for my HIIT workouts. It can be something like a reduced exertion high intensity interval training, like the one I do on my Calorie bike. It takes less than 9 minutes per day. You only have to do it 3 times a week, and it improves insulin sensitivity, improves your cardiovascular fitness, and helps you lose weight in the process, and you don't even sweat a lot. So check out those resources. That Calorie bike is really a great example of how you can do HIIT or re-HIIT right, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Strength training is another great way of not only building lean muscle tissue, and the more muscle tissue you have, the more calories your body needs and the more calories your body burns, but it's also great for improving insulin sensitivity. So go away from cardio, look for HIIT workouts, look for strength training and resistance training. It takes less time and it's more effective in the context of losing weight. Number 12, drinking diet sodas. Now many people think that, well, if a drink doesn't have any sugar, if it's sugar-free, it doesn't raise my blood sugar levels, so it's great to drink. The problem is that most artificial sweeteners negatively impact the health of your gut microbiome, meaning they mess with the bacterial composition inside of your digestive system, and that has negative consequences on your metabolic health, on your cravings, as well as on your weight loss efforts. If your gut is not healthy, you're not healthy, and you're gonna have trouble losing weight. So that's number 1, why I highly recommend staying away from diet sodas and anything with artificial sweeteners. The second problem is that certain sweeteners, non-caloric sweeteners, especially sucralose, has been shown to negatively impact your body's glucose metabolism. So while it doesn't raise your blood sugar levels, it teaches your body into thinking that if something sweet comes down the pike, we don't need to release insulin. And that, while that is true for a non-caloric sweetener, it's fatal if you actually then consume sugar or carbohydrates, but the body still thinks, oh, it's sweet, I don't need insulin. So that means your blood sugar levels then will remain high, and the only way for your body to get rid of them is to store them as fat. So stay away from artificial sweeteners, and in particular diet sodas. They are not good for your health and not good for your weight loss efforts. Number 13, high fructose corn syrup. It's a sweetener that is in a lot of processed foods, from ketchup to anything in sauces. You can find it everywhere because it's cheap to make. It's a highly processed type of food made from corn. And studies have shown that it increases hunger actually, and is more fattening than regular sugar. So stay away from anything that has high fructose corn syrup. I recommend staying away from processed foods, period. But in particular those that have high fructose corn syrup, and number 14, seed and vegetable oils like canola oil, safflower oil, all of the oils that are called vegetable oils, but in fact they are made out of seeds, from the seeds of certain plants. They are highly inflammatory, they are high in omega-6 and in particular linoleic acid. I have a dedicated article about that, so check that out. Stay away from those as well. They increase the size of your fat cell and cause oxidative stress and inflammation, and all of that is completely counterproductive for anyone who wants to lose weight. It's counterproductive for anyone because it makes you less healthy. It causes inflammation. So stay away from vegetable oils, and you would typically find them in processed foods, but also of course, cooking oils. Stay away from those. Use animal fats, beef tallow, ghee, pastured butter, those kind of things. Coconut oil is fine. Avocado oil is fine if you can find a good one. Olive oil is fine if you can find a really good one. Most of those are actually mixed with those seed oils, even though it's not explained on the labels. You have to be careful, but animal fats are the way to go. Stay away from seed oils. Before we're gonna wrap it up, I'd like to talk a little bit about why certain areas, or why you might have issues losing fat or weight in certain areas on your body. And that's particularly true for women, unfortunately. Now, speaking of women, it's important to understand that from an evolutionary perspective, women are supposed to carry more body fat than men. So they can be a little bit chunkier without being any less healthy, that's important, than men. Because think about it, women, they carry our children. They need to be able to feed the unborn and born children, even if there is no food around immediately. So even during a time when maybe a hunt was unsuccessful, women need to have some extra fat to use them to feed their children. And so that's why the typical body fat percentage of a woman is higher than that of a man. And that's perfectly fine. Women are not any less healthy because they're a little bit fatter, so to say. So that's good news number one. But in terms of why there are certain areas where you might accumulate more fat or have issues losing that fat is because of an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase, or LPL. And that enzyme dictates where on your body you store most of the fat. It's basically a signal for the body to say, okay, here is where I'm going to have my emergency reserves. And unfortunately, from a cosmetic perspective, many women have issues with that because it might be in the midsection, it might be the ankles, it might be the thighs, it might be the butt, whatever the case might be. Sometimes it's in the breast tissue, and I guess some women prefer that. But you cannot choose where that is on your body. Your body decides where there is a greater expression of that enzyme, that lipoprotein lipase, and that's where you're going to have more fat. And the problem is there isn't really a lot that you can do about that. The only thing you can do to remove those stubborn areas, or to shrink those stubborn areas, is to lose so much fat that there is no more fat storage anywhere on the body. And so then the body starts tapping into those areas. My wife has had a little pouch for all of her life, and regardless of how she eats and how much she exercises, that pouch has not changed dramatically. Maybe a little bit, but it's still the area, that one area that doesn't seem to be going away. And we've had several discussions about that, and I told her, what, this is where your body decides to store fat, and you're in metabolic excellent health, based on all the blood markers and everything that we do and check. So don't worry about it. Yes, it might bother you cosmetically, but it's not a health concern. So maybe it's better to just be okay with that instead of trying to suck it out. Speaking of, liposuction is obviously an option, and it is effective at removing fat cells. The problem with liposuction is the body will find a way, or will find a different spot to store that extra emergency fat. If you remove it from your midsection, let's say, you might end up then with bigger thighs or bigger ankles or whatever. The body will find a way to store fat that it thinks it needs, because that's an evolutionary concept. So I do not endorse or recommend liposuction or removing that because of that reason. It's an invasive procedure, and you just end up with those fat stores somewhere else. Now, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, let me know in the comments what I could have done better. Until next time.